Oh, we're on already. Wow, that was quick. So this morning we're on lesson 98 of a workbook of A Course in Miracles. I will accept my part in God's plan for salvation. And, one of the things that you come to understand, or at least I've come to understand, and I'm sure you'll begin to get it too because it's your mind as well as mine. It's the mind that we share, is that the decisions that you make organize the experiences that are brought to you, based on the integrity of the mind and the integrity of your own mind demands wholeness ultimately, and that is the basis. In the sense, it is the basis for the reason why. How would I say this? The necessity for the mind to demand its own integrity is the necessity for the integration of the truth back into your mind as a condition of your own wholeness, as well as containing the necessity for that which is not whole and is not integral to your mind being whole to come up so that it can be released. Now, when we accept our part in God's plan for salvation, what we're saying is that we accept that God knows the way for us to return home to Him. And because it's His plan and we're fulfilling His plan as He has made the plan, all will be given to us that's necessary and required for us to fulfill the plan. And included in that is what's required of us to heal within our own heart and mind so that we become free from thinking illusions are true, and truth is illusion, actually. And this lesson, to me, is one of the keys to be able to become a happy learner and learn based on trust rather than toil and struggle the way we've been attempting to learn and live in the world of space and time. How happy to be certain. All our doubts we lay aside today and take our stand with certainty of purpose. And with thanks, that doubt is gone and surety has come. There is within the Course, Jesus' understanding that He gives us that the only joy that we ever experience is in doing God's will. When we do God's will, in a sense, the ability to do God's will and the actual doing of God's will eliminates, how should I say this, doing or thinking anything that continues to cause us guilt and fear, because there is no fear and guilt in God's will. For a second, it seems to go against, let's call it the will or the path the world or the ego would have for us, which is why, in a sense, we need this mind training, because as we train our mind to consistently think along the lines, along the terms of the thought system that we're being offered in the Course in Miracles, the less and less of an obstacle it becomes, and the more easily integrated is the forgiveness that we need, because our mind, albeit still within the realm of illusion and ego, our mind has been trained sufficiently to not have the thoughts be in the way of the fulfillment of our function, as well as having experiences that give us the motivation to continue to fulfill our plan, our part in God's plan for salvation, because in a sense, the rewards that we receive are so different from that which we think we're going to get in the world to make us happy. And an indication of that comes on the second page of the lesson, if I could find it. Here, this is here. Is it not worthy? Is it not worth 5 minutes of your time each hour to be able to accept the happiness that God has given you? Is it not worth 5 minutes hourly to recognize your special function here? And notice he does use the word special, and he's not using it in the pejorative way that many of us take the word special and try to avoid it. We've asked for specialness, make no doubt about it. And we all, in a sense, are a specialized way of expressing the will of God and sharing his joy. So what the Course is offering, what Jesus is offering us the ability to do, what God is offering us the ability to do, and I think it's a necessary part of the learning process, is to be able to utilize exactly what we are here in space and time, or have exactly what we seem to be here in space and time, no longer be in the way of both the recognition of who we are and the ability to live out of the certainty of who we are based on the laws of the kingdom. And the reason for that is, ultimately, we have to see that it was never anything outside of us that caused us to go astray. It was merely errors in our own thinking, which gave us the illusion of having gone astray and left the kingdom. So many of the things when we start out with this course, or, as a matter of fact, the 12-step program. The 12-step program is a good example of this. We think that the problem is alcohol or some substance we're addicted to. But it's not until we no longer utilize that substance that we find out that the use of the substance was merely a symptom of the existence of the problem within us, and a faulty problem-solving mechanism caused us to think that the use of the substance eliminated the problem, simply because we no longer, for a little while, experience the symptoms. And when we stop, like when I stopped using the drugs that I had been using, what I recognized was the addictive tendency of my personality turned everything into a drug that I could use against me as a way of sedating myself from the pain, suffering that I was inflicting upon myself in the world of space and time, therefore allowing me to think that there was nothing to deal with, when in fact all that had to be dealt with was my own thinking. Now, to prove to me who the doubting Thomas that I am and that we all are, to prove to me that that is true, at a certain point in time, the things that I thought had harmed me, when my mind is healed of the ability for me to use my own thinking against myself, I'm given back what I previously thought hurt me in a way in which I could understand it was never anything that I thought was outside of myself. In fact, that was all neutral. It was the value and meaning that I had given it versus the value that I had, the devaluation of what I had given, what I allowed myself to know of myself, with the ability to be happy simply because I am whole and perfect as God created me. And so as we give up the world, in a sense, as Jesus came to know, the world is given back to him in a way in which, through the fulfillment of his function, something new occurs, and we can begin to participate in the salvation of the world rather than continue to participate in the world of sickness, pain, suffering, and death as if it's a prison house. So it goes on to say, you have made 1,000 losing bargains, which is what it was I was talking about. In your need for specialness, and when I'm talking about specialness, I'm talking about the idea that there's something outside of me which can complete me. In our search for specialness, in our search to be so unique that we are unlike everything else, we've made 1,000 bargains with things that which we thought were going to help keep us happy and help keep the struggles that we go through as a human at bay long enough for us to be happy. And they've never worked. You have made 1,000 bargains at least. Here is an offering guaranteeing you your full release from pain of every kind and joy the world does not contain. Okay? And the joy that we begin to experience is based on who we are in relationship to our own divinity, in relationship to our own inherent wholeness, in relationship to our own inherent value to God and in creation, rather than the value and meaning that we've given to what has no meaning and value simply because it has no existence and at best can be seen as transient and passing. And that's what we've put our faith in. That's what we've put our, that's the plan that we have been following, putting our faith in what has no meaning, what has no value, is merely transient and does not exist, putting our faith, hanging our joy and our dreams and our hopes on it, guaranteeing that it must be lost because things are temporary, and then experiencing the sickness, frustration, and failure of having done that. And we do it over and over again, and we never once question the reality of what it is we've been putting our faith in and the bargains that we've been making. When we finally turn around and recognize that this isn't working, and we begin to align ourselves with God's plan for our salvation, our continued experience of joy and happiness, and the ability to know ourselves as whole and perfect within the kingdom, things change because we've changed the order that we're utilizing to think and therefore guide us in the world or through the world of space and time. We merely begin to see the world as a way in which we work out our own salvation and the salvation of all of our brothers in the world along with us. Yes, here is an offer guaranteeing you full release from pain of every kind and a joy the world does not contain. Now, who would want to refuse that offer when it's looked up against, when you look at it against what it is we've been doing here, the bargains that we made, the thousands of times that we've put our faith in bargains that have no ability to work because they have no ability to be sustained because they're based on nothingness, which has no value. You can exchange a little of your time for the peace of mind and certainty of purpose with the promise of complete success. Now, where else, or who else, or what other offer would you like to pursue? And since time has no meaning, so you're being asked. So you're being asked to remember for about 5 minutes every hour or so. You're being asked to remember that only God's plan for salvation can work and that you want to fulfill your part in that plan. You don't have to decide on how that happens. You don't have to come up with an understanding of the plan. You just have to make the decision and allow the constancy, consistency, and integrity of your own mind to begin to work with the truth of who you are as God created you to begin to present to you a path wherein which certainty of success is guaranteed, because the Christ, which is the fulfillment of you, goes before you and leads the way, leaving no stone unturned, leaving no residual in the path for you to trip up on along the way. And since time has no meaning, you are being asked for nothing in return for everything. The 5 minutes that you think that you're being asked of in the condition of space and time being illusion is merely nothing, and you're being offered everything in return for the nothing that you're willing to give up. As a matter of fact, and since time has no meaning, you're being asked for nothing in return for everything. Here is a bargain that you cannot lose, and what you gain is limitless indeed, for what you gain is the experience and certainty of your own eternal, perfect, whole, infinite nature as God created you. So each hour, give him your tiny gift of but 5 minutes. He will give you the words you use in practicing today's idea. He will give the words you use in practicing today's idea the deep conviction and certainty you lack, because as you make this commitment, you are joining with what is already true, what is already whole, and what is already perfect, and what has already been accomplished, because you've already been saved. You've already been saved because the nightmare or illusion of space and time has no reality whatsoever. And you're not going to conflict with it. You're not going to contradict it. You're not going to fight with it. You're merely going to begin to recognize the unreality of it and the inability of it for it to having caused you the consternation that you think it's been causing you, and the sickness, pain, and suffering and death that you thought was a necessary part of it in order to be here whatsoever. His words will join with yours and make each repetition of today's idea total dedication, made in faith, as perfect and as sure as he is his in you. This, to me, is the key to becoming a happy learner. We don't have to do this based on the toil and sweat of our own brow. We can do this in recognition that God has a plan for us for the salvation of the world, and we have a part to play in the plan. And obviously, if the plan is for salvation, then it must include the forgiveness that we require for ourselves in order to see ourselves as whole and perfect and not outside the kingdom of heaven. So what more can you ask for? It's a well laid out plan, as opposed to the chaos of the ego and what it engenders, of course, because God's plan for salvation is opposite in every way to the plan that the ego keeps on offering you for the way in which you're going to save face here and maintain, a nice looking image up until the image becomes a corpse, and you're once again found with the necessity to repeat lessons or the trials that you failed to learn. And the failing to learn the lessons are merely the thoughts that something outside of you is whole true, and that you're not whole and perfect and within the kingdom already. The illusion has no ability to prevent you, because it isn't anything. It's the faith and the meaning we give the illusion, which we are now extracting from the illusion and placing in what's whole and perfect and true and faithful already, which is the eternal nature of an ever-loving God and his desire to share that eternal nature from his infinite love with you and I as his only living son, right here, right now. You don't have to die to go to heaven. You just have to begin to recognize that heaven is within you. The kingdom is within you, and you never left. And God's plan for salvation is the journey without distance to the place that you never left. And we could do this in joy, because everything will be given to us that's required for us to fulfill this function.